Good morning, everyone. This, the Wednesday, January 8th, 2025 regular meeting of the Nags Head Board of Commissioners is hereby called to order. Please join me in a few moments of silence and give some thought perhaps to our friends in California, those small communities, not unlike ours, many of them that are facing devastation and fear this morning. Now, if you'll stand as you're able and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The first item on our agenda is the adoption of the agenda, and a motion would be in order.
So moved.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, thank you. Our only scheduled recognition has been moved to the February meeting, so that brings us to public comment. Mr. Leidy?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. At this time, the Board of Commissioners welcomes members of the public to provide comment on matters of interest to you or concern. Anybody who wishes to provide comment, please remember that this is not an opportunity for dialogue, and the board rarely responds to comments, but this is an opportunity for people to express their comments to the board. Also, we have a public hearing on the agenda for later this morning. If you wish to comment on that, you can reserve your comments until we get to that public hearing. But anyone else who wishes to provide comment, this would be your opportunity. If you wish to do so, please go to the podium, tell us your name and where you live, and then address your remarks to the board. And I will let you know when your 5 minutes is just about up.
Hi, my name is Shelley Blackstone, and I have a property in Nags Head. I'm not as up to date on the information about this, but I understand that there is a provision in the bill that was passed to support relief for victims of Helene that had to do with changing the way that if one resident could wanted to do something with their property and the other citizens did not want that to happen, that basically that one resident could override everybody else. So I may not be interpreting this correctly, but what this brings to mind, because it's happened, stuff like this has happened where there seems to be no transparency with the state legislature. These things get slipped in, and we find out about it after the fact. And it seems like, and I don't know if we have lobbyists, like if the towns have lobbyists, like maybe collectively, and maybe the Friends of Jockey's Ridge, or something could happen where we were more knowledgeable before the fact at the legislature, at the state legislature, before these things happen, because it just seems like there have been others, as you know, that happen, and it's always kind of like a surprise, and we're the last to know, and the towns are the last to know, and it takes away the authority of the towns. As you know, because you had the towns got together and did a lawsuit, which is unfortunate because it seems like this is somewhat unconstitutional as well. So I don't know if that's something that's been considered. I know they cost money, but maybe the towns could pool together and do something like that. Thanks.
Thank you, Ms. Blackstone. Does anybody else wish to comment to the board? Anybody? All right. If not, at this time, we will conclude the public comment session.
Thank you. That brings us to the consent agenda, which you have before you. It's relatively short, this meeting, and a motion would be in order.
So moved. Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you. That brings us to public hearings, and back to you, Mr. Lighty, along with Ms. Wyatt.
All right, at this time, the board will begin the public hearing to consider a special use permit site plan amendment for the Soundside event site. On this matter, the board sits as a quasi-judicial body, and as you know, that requires that the board comply with certain requirements. A quasi-judicial hearing is the process for the board to adjudicate how the general law applies to a particular situation based on an evidentiary record to be presented during the hearing. Your two key responsibilities are, one, to determine contested facts, and two, to apply the legal standards to the facts. You may apply only the standards already contained in the ordinance. You are not permitted to change or modify those standards during this hearing or as part of your decision. In conducting this hearing, certain safeguards must be instituted in order to give the applicant a fair hearing. The applicant has the right to cross-examine witnesses and offer rebuttal evidence. The procedure of the ordinance must be followed. Board members may question any witness at any time during the hearing. Questions from the floor will not be permitted except by cross-examination from any of the sworn witnesses once they have been recognized to speak. Also, a member must not vote on the application if the outcome of the matter being considered is reasonably likely to have a direct and substantial financial impact on the member. If such a direct and substantial financial conflict exists, the member should disclose that and ask to be excused from consideration of the matter. Also, if any of the members present have had any contact with anyone prior to this hearing in which the particulars of this application were discussed, or if you've received letters, email messages, phone calls, or other contact from anyone concerning this matter prior to the hearing, you must disclose those communications. You must base your decision on this application entirely on facts presented during this hearing and disregard the particulars discussed with the applicant or any other party. A member must also base his or her decision on the evidence presented during this hearing. Any member who has developed a predetermined opinion or bias on the outcome of this application before the hearing must not participate in the decision on the application. Also, your decision must be based on competent, substantial, and material evidence properly entered into the record of this hearing. Crucial facts used to determine the outcome of this hearing must be based on sworn statements made by witnesses during this hearing. While you may be presented before or during this hearing with copies of unsworn statements contained in letters, emails, or so forth, such unsworn evidence can only be used to corroborate or supplement other sworn evidence presented during this hearing. Unsworn evidence such as letters or emails can never be used as the sole basis for your decision. So, at this time, if any member needs to recuse themselves from this hearing for one of the reasons that I have explained, please request that a motion be made to recuse you from participating in this hearing or voting on this matter at this time.
May I ask a question, Mr. Lighty?
Yes, sir.
I gain nothing financial, have no predetermined notions of this, but I am on the tourism board, and we have seen this plan come before us because that is the tourism board property. Do you see any conflict?
Are you able to base your decision solely on the evidence that will be presented during this hearing?
Absolutely. Yeah.
I do believe that your role, you're on the tourism board, right? As a member of that board, I'm afraid that you would be, although you may be unbiased, I believe that that does create a conflict for you, and you should be excused from participation. And for that reason, I'm going to recommend that you can make the motion, but somebody make a motion to excuse you and that you be excused by a vote of the council.
Yeah, I'll make that motion.
Okay?
Second.
I have a motion and a second that the commissioner be excused from this discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sears. Also, at this time, if any member needs to disclose a communication about the subject of this hearing that the member has had with one of the applicants or other persons prior to this hearing, now is the opportunity for you to disclose such communications. All right, so at this time, we're about to begin the evidentiary presentation, but first, the town clerk must swear in the applicant and all witnesses who plan to provide testimony or evidence in this case. So if you would, please approach the clerk and let her administer the oath.
Please raise your right hand. Do you swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God? Thank you.
So at this time, we will begin the evidentiary presentation with the staff's analysis presented by the Planning and Development Director, Kelly Wyatt.
Thank you. Good morning, Mayor and Commissioners. I went ahead and just put the site plan for what we're going to be talking about up on the screen as opposed to going through the memo item by item. That way we can see what we're talking about. But as mentioned, the applicant for this is Albemarle and Associates on behalf of the Dare County Tourism Bureau. It is a special use permit request and site plan amendment. There are essentially 3 approvals that they are seeking in this request. The first is the inclusion of 5 additional properties as part of the approved site plan for the designated event site. Those properties are 6716 South Croatan Highway, which is the former Dairy Queen site, 6714 South Croatan Highway, which is where the Aerial Adventure Park is located, 6708 South Croatan Highway, which is the former Pamlico Jack's restaurant, and 6807 and 6806 South Virginia Dare Trail, which is where South Beach Grill used to be. So those properties were not part of the original site plan approval, but over the years they have been using those properties to supplement activities for the event site. So we felt that it was appropriate to go ahead and include those properties. They do not need to be technically recombined based upon the definition of designated public event site. So I did want to note that. The second request that we have is approval of Soundside Boardwalk, gazebos, platforms, and docking facilities. You can see those on the site plan. And the third request is for construction of 10 pickleball courts to be located on the former Pamlico Jack's restaurant building site. So if you look up here on our site plan, where my cursor is, that is where Pamlico Jack's restaurant used to be. The parking lot is still intact. They'll be using that, and you can see the proposed 10 pickleball courts here. And then you can also see the proposed boardwalk with several platforms and gazebo proposed out here. I'll pull this down a little bit. You can also see a couple of boat slips have been proposed out here as well. So the property, it's at 6800 South Croatan Highway. Everyone's probably familiar with that. It is Zone C2 General Commercial, and it's also within the Commercial Outdoor Recreation Overlay District. The properties surrounding it are also C2 and part of the Commercial Outdoor Recreation Overlay District. And your 2022 Comprehensive Land Use Plan classifies this as recreation, waterfront, and commercial recreation. So there is consistency with that. In terms of the use, Section 6.6 of our UDO lists designated public event site as a special use within the C2, and there are some supplemental regulations that are in 7.58. Section 8.5.2.5 refers to all general requirements applicable to the Commercial Outdoor Recreation Overlay District. I've provided both of those code sections in your packet. I won't go through all of it, but staff's review finds that this proposal is consistent with both of those sections of the code. Lot coverage is going to be allowable at 55%, and just with the pickleball courts as shown and the other improvements, they're at about 26.2, so they're compliant there. There are no structures proposed at this time, so we don't have to worry about height. It also means that we're not worried about architectural design at this point. In terms of parking, the required parking for designated public event site is determined by the types of uses that are on the site. Parking standard for tennis court is 1.5 parking spaces for each tennis court or sport court. The 10 proposed pickleball courts would require 15 parking spaces, and we have about 91 on site. So parking is certainly within compliance. Based upon this property being in the C2, being surrounded by C2, there are no buffering requirements that would kick in because of this request. Would note that prior to any installation of lighting, we will have to have an approved lighting plan, photometrics, and once installed, we'll do a light audit to ensure that's compliant. There's no proposal for signage at this time. We do have approval from the Dare County Health Department for septic. That was part of your application as well. And would note that patrons of the pickleball court will be using via the sidewalk connections, the restroom in the Dairy Queen building, as well as the restroom facilities on the site of the Aerial Adventure Park, which those are all connected by sidewalks. Traffic circulation and stormwater management were both reviewed by the town engineer and found to be in compliance. As with all projects, it will have to meet fire code. Our Public Services Department looked at this, and it is compliant as proposed. They also have their CAMA major permit, 61-24, for all the work that's being proposed with the boardwalk, and that was included in your packet for review as well. Based upon staff's analysis, we do find that it is consistent with the UDO. When presented to the planning department, they were in agreement and they unanimously recommended approval of the special use site plan amendment as it's shown. In the audience today, we do have John DeLucia with Albemarle and Associates, and Lee Nettles and Diane Bognich with the Tourism Bureau. So I'm happy to answer any questions that you have for me.
All right, does the board have any questions for Ms. Wyatt?
No, it appears like they covered all their bases. Does this affect the adventure park in any way, or?
It does not.
Okay,
No, that's, I believe they have a lease for that property, and so they're unaffected by this request.
thank you.
All right, Mr. DeLucia, do you have any questions of Ms. Wyatt? All right, do you wish to present?
Only if there's questions.
Why don't you go to the podium and we'll see if there are any questions for you.
Good morning, Happy New Year, everybody. I hope you stay warm this week. I think Kelly covered it all. There's a few things that needed to be cleaned up as far as bringing the extra parcels in. The boardwalk, getting the camera permit was a real major task. It required us to go for a variance at one point. There was a couple of areas where we had to redesign, but the Tourist Bureau had asked us to come up with a design for the boardwalk that was cool, and I think we did. Chris Nason's been working with us on the gazebo. The gazebo actually has a hole in the middle of it, in the roof, an octolus he calls it. I guess Ben would call it that too.
Sure.
And we also, we found an old picture of a sign that was at the foot of the wooden bridge that came across from Currituck that said everybody's welcome before.
See
And
that.
so we're gonna put that sign on one of those boardwalks, not the original sign, obviously.
Nice.
And I think that'll be really a neat addition to the boardwalk. But yes, there are some boat slips that, where the boat slips are out at the end there, there's a couple there right now, and we're adding a few more, basically. The water's very shallow there, it's only about 2 or 3 feet deep, so we're not gonna get anything of any size to come in there. The pickleball courts are gonna be constructed there at where Tamco Jacks used to be. We're gonna take that side parking lot out that's there now, and construct the pickleball courts as you see them there. Other than that, I'm here to answer any questions you might have.
The only question I've had about this is the thinking about the inclusion of the boat slips and how the owner or the operator foresees those being used. I mean, I know there are boat slips out there, so You know, who's using them and who do you anticipate using them? Are they used for jet skis? Are they small craft? Are they kayak launching? All of the above, or-
Kayak launch. I think they're probably for small boats that want to come in, just come in from the sound.
As an alternative
as an
to arrive?
alternative, kind of like what we have in Duck.
Okay.
I mean, we haven't heard any talk about commercial use of those docks at all.
Okay. All right. Thank you. That's all.
Any other questions for Mr. DeLucia?
I had a couple of questions.
Yes, sir.
Just more general curiosity, but, so the pickleball court lighting, will that be configured so that it's only on when people are using it? Is it gonna be like a dial system or something where it will come off if?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, it'll be similar to what exists up at Rec Park,
okay,
for the evening time. And there'll be a certain time at night where you can't turn them on at all,
okay,
so that they can be controlled during, someone can't come at 3 o'clock in the morning and decide to turn
Right.
the ball and turn the lights on.
but they're off until somebody's there and then okay, great. And then the other question, you mentioned the variance, and I don't know if that had to do with multiple elements on the boardwalk. I know there was an interest in that southern connection where the kite surfers might use. Did you guys get that the way you wanted it there?
We did. And what Andy's referring to is CAMA says that we have to be 36 inches above the substrate with our boardwalk minimum. And the kiteboard people would prefer not to have handrails on this because it catches up on the kites.
Yeah.
But if you're more than 32 inches above the ground, you're required to have handrails. So we didn't address that. We told them that we would be compliant with the camera standards. So we will have to be putting some handrails on that unless we can find another way around that.
Okay, all right,
And what I noticed recently was Coastal Studies Institute built some walkways out in the marsh
mhm,
that would work perfectly here. So we may pursue how those were permitted and see if that could be amended.
okay,
But we still need a walkway there. Right now, that's where the kiteboards are walking through there, and it's a muddy mess. It really is. By the end of the summer, it's just nasty. And I'm afraid what's gonna happen is they're gonna continue to walk through the marsh
mhm.
because they don't wanna walk across something with handrails. But for mom with little kids that wanna get to the sound and go swimming or get into the water, that's gonna be perfect.
Okay. All right, we can talk more about that.
Okay.
Any other questions for Mr. DeLucia? Any other evidence, Mr. DeLucia, you wish to present?
No, sir?
All right, thank you very much. Is there anyone else who was sworn? I guess Mr. Ryan, I don't know if there's anything that he needs to present. Does the board have any questions, or, I'm sorry, wish to receive any other evidence regarding this application before you begin your deliberations?
Good.
All right. If not, at this time, we will conclude the evidentiary presentation, and the board may begin its deliberations on this application.
Well, we can certainly start with a motion if someone is so disposed, or we can discuss.
I'll make a motion to approve this presented.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yeah, I will second that.
Okay, all right, then I have a motion, a second. Didn't hear any wish for discussion. So hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, thank you.
Thank you. We'll be bidding this shortly, the next month or so.
Okay, all
We'll
right.
get this under construction.
Excited to see it. Great, thank you. Kelly, will you keep you there for reports and recommendations from the planning board and the director?
Thank you. I do have a couple items today that I did want to mention. So the planning board did not meet in December, but we are on track to meet January 21st, where we'll be talking about accessory dwelling units. I'm just continuing that conversation. The Board of Adjustment did meet in December, and they approved a variance from the corner lot setback requirements at 3100 South Virginia Dare Trail. That was to allow for an elevator, making the property more accessible for the property owner. We have a Septic Health Advisory Committee meeting scheduled for January 27th at 10 a.m. And staff are continuing to work on the septic infrastructure mapping project, and that's going well. We do have some updates on the Estuarine Shoreline Management Plan. We sent mailers to property owners adjacent to the marsh stabilization projects along Villa Dunes and Soundside Road. The letters explain the purpose of the plan and to provide details on the timing and location of survey work. That survey work is currently occurring and will be going through February. We finalized the public engagement plan, and staff and the consultants have been working on creating a dedicated web page for the two projects that people can go to find all the information about that and details and next steps. We're in the midst of sand relocation, obviously, so that's just been a steady, ongoing thing for us. And then this next item, I'm pretty excited about. It's a new item on your agenda, so I wanted to just take a few seconds and highlight that if possible. It's the Dark Sky, Bright Stars Initiative. It ties into an action item, an air strategic plan, where we were exploring non-regulatory ways to minimize residential lighting impacts. I also wanted to give a thank you to our PIO, Roberta Thuman, over here, planner, Chris Tremblay, and Deputy Planning Director, Joe Costello. They've been integral in getting this off the ground. The initiative is all about reducing light pollution and encouraging simple, actionable actions to reduce unnecessary artificial lighting on all properties, residential and commercial. We did create a dedicated web page for the initiative, and I would like to try to pull that up for you. Hopefully this works. Here we go. So this is our web page. It's got a lot of information about light pollution, its causes and effects. A lot of really nice visuals here as well, and some steps that people can take to try to make a difference if they're interested in doing so. Planner Chris Tremblay has taken the lead on this. He's been diving into all the international dark sky initiatives, and he's developed a program to take sky quality readings with a sky quality monitor here in town. Using the monitor, Chris can measure sky glow, which is an overall measurement of light pollution in an area. It's not just pinpointing one source of light, which is what we do with a light audit. It's actually assessing the broader impact of sky glow and artificial lighting. Chris has been doing this for about 3 months, and Joe Costello has mapped all the data, making it accessible for the public. It is included here, I thought. There we go. So you can, when you're on this web page, you can actually click on this mapping effort. Hopefully it will load. When it does load, you'll see that there's various points everywhere that we have been taking these measurements. Okay. Well, you might have to do this outside the meeting, but where we've taken measurements, there's various little dots. They're yellow, and the brightness of the yellow corresponds to, oh, I think we're getting it. The brightness of the yellow dot corresponds to the level of light pollution. So if the yellow dot is very bright, then that's a reading that's going to tell you that there is a lot of sky glow in that area, and perhaps a lot of light pollution in that area. If it's the more muted, which you can see here, that's going to tell you that there is not a lot of sky glow, and that's an area with not a lot of light pollution. So wonderful, this finally loaded. Let's see. Now we just have to decide if I can actually use it. All right. So we have a point here at 8th Street. So when you click on this point, it will give you some data on the sky glow readings. As you can see, that's a pretty bright star, or dot rather. So that's in the average to poor reading. But as you go down, not surprisingly, when you get into South Nags Head, our dots get a little duller in color. So Surfside and Ramp 1, those have very good readings. There's not a lot of sky glow and pollution in those areas. So I won't mess around with the map too much. I'm fortunate just to have gotten this much out of it. So, but we're only on month 3 and taking these readings. It's really exciting. Chris is really enthusiastic about it. And if you see him, maybe mention it, but you literally have to do these readings on a new moon so that you don't have a lot of light interference, natural light interference. So there's a lot of intricacies around when you do the readings and how you do the readings. And they can also be uploaded to the International Dark Sky webpage. So it's a really exciting thing that we're doing, and we're all excited to see the months coming and what trends that we might see with that. So in addition to this, we do hope to expand the initiative, including educational outreach, volunteer opportunities where residents might call in, ask for our staff to go out and just do a voluntary light audit of their property. Maybe there'll be some incentives down the road to try to encourage people to reduce their overall lighting on site. In addition to that, I did want to mention that we have oops, I might have messed up. On our website, Roberta has been working on a wonderful video on light pollution, which is going to be on Destination Dare, and you can watch it here on this dedicated website as well. So it's a really exciting initiative, and it's keying in on one of our strategic plan items. So we'll certainly see how it evolves. Lastly, the last item I have is just about Dowdy Park. Event coordinator Paige Griffin is working on our winter food markets. The next one, or actually our first one, is going to be this Saturday, January 11th. It's predicted to be some pretty bad weather, I think, cold, dreary, but we do have several confirmed vendors who are going to be there, rain or shine, so we do hope people come out and participate. Art and Culture Committee, we always come to you in the month of March talking about the past season, hopes for the coming season, and maybe some budgetary items, so we'll plan to do that in March as well. That's all I have for you this morning.
Thank you, Kelly. Any questions for Kelly? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I saw Chris Tremblay in the hall on New Year's Eve, and he's like, well, what are you doing tonight? He was going out to measure light quality.
We appreciate Chris and his enthusiasm. Our new business, our presentation on the audit is time specific for 10 o'clock, so we will move past that, and I'll start with Commissioner Lambert and ask if there are any committee reports.
No new updates. The Septic Health Committee, as Kelly mentioned, is meeting on the 27th, and then the Government Education Access Channel will be meeting on the 28th, so I look forward to reporting back in February.
Thank you. Commissioner Sears?
Nothing on the committees that I've served on.
Okay, all right, thank you. I think it was quiet. The Jeanette's peer committee advisory committee did not meet again, and so nothing to report there. Commissioner Sanders?
On the Estuarine Shoreline Committee, I think Kelly has a little bit more to speak about that a little later, but on the living shoreline, so she'll keep us updated on that.
Okay. All right, great. That brings us to consideration of appointments and reappointments to town boards and committees. First being consideration of appointment to the Board of Adjustment alternate position. Is there any staff that need to speak to this?
Certainly we could, we were asking for the board to consider filling a vacant alternate position, and I believe the candidate wants to be reappointed. And so, I believe it's Margaret Suppler and.
No.
That's the chair and the vice chair.
It's chair and vice chair. So we have a couple of candidates for filling the
Alternate, but
alternate.
we haven't had an alternate since 19.
The one, Andy, the one alternate does a lot of travel.
Okay.
So unless somebody is hot to nominate somebody for this alternate position, we may pass it for another month.
Is staff
Need it?
saying we need a third
Okay,
alternate
we
this
need it.
year?
Yeah, okay. All right. Then, let's while everybody's chewing on that, let's go to the other item, which is the reappointment of the chair and the vice chair, who are interested in being reappointed. So if somebody wants to make that motion.
I'll make a motion, we reappoint them.
I will second that.
Okay. Any discussion?
No discussion.
All right, hearing none, then all in favor of reappointing the Board of Adjustment current sitting chair and vice chair signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? All right, thank you. Does anyone wish to nominate an alternate?
I'll nominate Rob Snyder.
Okay, all right, thank you.
I'll second that.
For a second. Okay. All right. Have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right. Hearing none. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right, thank you. All right, that brings us to a discussion of employee service awards. Jan?
Good morning. I don't get to come to these meetings very often, but it was really cool to hear about the Bright Skies Initiative. So I'm here on behalf of the Team Advocacy Group, which includes representatives from various departments within the town of Nags Head, to present an updated services award policy. As you may know, service awards are intended to recognize staff for their tenured service and dedication to the town. And the current policy has not been updated in quite some time. I believe in your package you have a chart that shows a side-by-side of the current policy and what we're proposing. So currently our current policy provides awards in 5-year increments, and we'd like to keep those increments the same. However, we're proposing increasing the value of the rewards at each of those increments. For example, you'll see at the 10-year award, we currently provide a $40 gift card. And instead of the gift card, we're proposing a $200 item, not a gift card, to be clear. For the 5-year service award, the item we were proposing partnering with like a local artisan or a small business to provide an item that you may see like at one of our markets, like a cutting board or a piece of pottery. And so that way we're not only recognizing our staff, but we're also supporting our local community. And then for the other award items, there's large vendors, and they provide awards in certain increments, dollar increments. So an individual would be able to choose something of their liking. So anything from like a coffee maker to a drill set to a grill, depending upon the award amount. So there's really something for everybody in using a larger vendor. And then from a cost perspective, it would average out to about $6,200 annually, which does present an increase of about $4,500 from what we're currently doing. But we do think, given how how long it's been since this policy's been updated, that this would just provide more meaningful awards for folks and their service to the town. So with that, I'll pause and ask if the board has any questions.
Do you, what is the practice of in other communities of about our size or of the other local communities? Is this going to be relatively consistent with what your understanding is of what others do?
That's a good question, and I don't have exact dollar amounts, so I can't tell you definitively on that. I can tell you in the private sector using larger vendors, and I've also saw other communities that use these vendors and allow individuals to choose gifts.
Okay, all right, thank you. Any questions, board? Okay. Then this is a recommendation that requires adoption as part of our personnel policy.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, very good. In that case, either discussion or a motion would be in order.
I think after the years, and we spoke about it before, some of the awards and recognition that we give out are very small. I mean, 10 years is $40 in 10 years is not much. Maybe what, 5 cups of coffee or something?
Yeah, right.
So I mean, I'll make the motion to increase this for the first time in many years.
Okay, all right, is there a second?
Second?
I have a motion and a second. I agree. You know, it's something you can sort of goes over your head sometimes when we're in here and there's family present and we're recognizing somebody for years of service. But if you really stop and look at the numbers, it's not, you know, it's not a meaningful amount. And I like the way you're doing this in terms of something that might be meaningful to an employee as opposed to just a sort of an anonymous gift card in an envelope. I think this is much better.
And I also, like, one of our TAG members had recommended partnering with the local artisan for the 5-year, which I think is pretty cool.
That's fabulous. There are some great things to choose from there. So, having heard a motion and a second, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? All right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jan.
Yeah,
Appreciate
thank you.
that very much. Let's see, are we close enough? We're not close enough to 10 o'clock yet. We can keep going. All right, Mr. Leidy, are we going to have anything other than what we'll have in closed session?
No, sir.
All right, very good. Then that brings us to the town manager and consideration of a land and water fund grant.
All right, thank you, Mayor. And maybe Amy could come up and talk a little bit about this grant and what we applied for, if you don't mind, Amy.
Sure, this all actually happened a year ago. It's been a year-long process, so. This is, we applied for a land and water fund grant at the Harvey site, Soundside site. And I think I put in the summary, it's less than a mile of restoration. This is in conjunction, of course, with our pilot site 3 from our adopted estuary and shoreline master plan. And just to be clear, we would have to record like an easement on these properties. I believe there's 8 separate properties. And these are properties jointly owned, separately owned by the town, separately owned by the tourism board, and then jointly owned by both. And, you know, obviously we worked closely with them to let them know what was going on. We got a letter of support from the tourism board. We actually received a $100,000 grant from the tourism board to pay for a local portion towards this project. So the total budget for the project is $600,000, and that is for construction and design. We do have, this is what we're asking the board today is just to authorize the town manager to sign a contract with the Land and Water Fund. We're not asking the board to accept a contract with any of our consultants or anything like that. This is just to enter into the contract with the Land and Water Fund so we can move forward with the next steps. Once we do sign a contract with a fully executed contract with the Land and Water Fund, we will have a year to be under contract for construction. So we'll have a year to design, and we're not sure what that looks like, if we're, you know, if we're gonna have one firm that does it all or bid it out separately. So we're working through that now. We will eventually have to, and we do have a draft, we will eventually have a easement recorded on the properties, just so we preserve the living shoreline. And it's fairly simple, but we will, you know, ask the board for approval for that as well when we're ready for that. So this is just the initial step so we can start moving forward. And we thank the tourism board and the land and waterfront, of course. So if we have any other questions, I'm happy to try to help.
Okay.
And thank you to Joe. I know Joe Costello, he's helped with that grant also. So.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Joe. You want anything to say about this?
No, I just think it's really exciting that this is moving forward. I know that you guys have worked really hard on getting these grants, and I appreciate it. And it's a really good pilot project for the town of Nags Head, and I'm really looking forward to see how it pans out and how it'll help us.
Okay. All right. Any questions or comments? Board?
It's very exciting that go with Commissioner Sanders said.
It is. This has been a long time coming. I know a former commissioner who would be very excited that we got to this point to be able to do this project. So a motion to accept the offer from Land and Water Trust Fund for a grant award in the amount of $500,000. That motion would be in order.
I would like to make that motion.
All right. Is there a second?
Second?
I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, great.
Thank you.
Very excited about that. Get to do something on the other side of the island.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. Do we have time, David, for an update before we get to our time-specific item?
We do.
Okay. All right. Very good. Come on up then.
Seriously, with a lot of business today.
Good morning, Mayor and Commissioners. What we have up on the board is very similar to what we have presented for previous months for the Public Services Complex and the final stages of construction for that project. Last month, we talked about the vehicle storage building. We were only a week or so away from occupancy, and we have occupied that building, and I've got some photos. This is where we were last month, and you can see we've got our sanitation vehicles stored within that building, and so the sanitation folks are extremely happy to have their home base back up at Public Services. A major focus over the past month has been on some of the site work. And what I have up here on the screen, I've got various colors. Those that are white, those are just the gaps that are still under construction and still yet to complete. Those highlighted in orange represent completions, portions of the project that have been completed. You can see right here at the top of the page, we had a recent driveway or drive aisle that was completed with the pouring of concrete. I've got some pictures that go along with that. And then we also have the portion of the parking, which is highlighted here in green, here in the center of the page and down here to the lower right. And then also the construction of a small little building which will house a lot of our equipment. Right here is the paver parking. The gravel base has been put in place along with the ribbon curb, and the subcontractor is currently going ahead and putting in the leveling course in advance of the pavers being put in place. Here's another photo of the smaller 4-bay parking area. We've also had some solar light installation take place over the past month. This is the slab for that small equipment washout building, and that has proceeded to construction here. This picture was taken this morning. These walls are in the process of being constructed. That building in its entirety is probably going to take another 2 to 3 weeks, so by the end of the month, that building should be pretty much close to completion. We've got the columns to support the canopy that are shown on this photo right here, and that canopy will extend over the new fuel dispensers as well as the 2 truck washout bays. And I'll just go over that configuration. Over here to the left-hand side of the page, shown here in orange, those are where the fuel dispensers are going to be placed. Right next to that, we've got 2 washout bays. The one washout bay is a drive-through with a rinse arch. The other washout bay is primarily for the sanitation trucks, and there will be a pressure washer to be able to rinse off those vehicles. Right here is that building that is under construction. We've got the above-ground fuel tank, which is shown here on the top right. And then, like I said, the connecting parking areas, which are well on their way to being complete here within the next week or so. So we anticipate by the end of the month that most all of this site work will be infilled and be complete. There will probably be some small remaining items, but we're getting to that point where we're in the last 30 to 45 days of construction for this project. So I'll be glad to answer any questions that you have.
Questions, board?
No questions, just, I went by just before Christmas and I was amazed at the progress just since the last time we saw it. It looks great.
But thank you.
Good feedback from staff.
Yes, yes, I think everybody's happy to be in their new homes, and everybody's just trying to figure out their new space, and yeah, I think everybody's extremely happy with their new equipment and their new buildings.
Very great. Thank you very much, David. Appreciate all your work over there.
All right, thank you.
That brings us to the Board of Commissioners agenda. We'll start, let's see. We got time. I'll start with you. Mr. Sanders, anything to bring for the board this morning?
Nothing today, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Sears?
Nothing today, sir.
Okay, Commissioner Lambert? Okay, great. As for me, I do want to give an update on the appointment process. Since we met in December, we had a deadline right before the Christmas holiday, the 20th of December. We received 14 applications. Those have been published. And I do want to say on the board's behalf how grateful we are to those who put their names forward and took the time to fill out the form, state their qualifications, talk about why they were interested. Nags Head is profoundly fortunate to have people who are qualified and interested in serving as a board member for that appointed term to serve in Commissioner Brinkley's allotted slot until the next election. And we do anticipate making that appointment. We hope. We are not under a deadline. I do want to say that. The board is not obligated to a deadline. We do intend to move apace, and our hope is that we would be able to do that at our next regular meeting. So thank you all very much. I see a couple of folks in attendance today who took the time to do that and offered themselves up to service to the town, and we do appreciate that very much. Is there other business to come before the board?
I had a few items I was going to mention.
Okay.
The first item, we do a town-wide staff meeting every year, usually in the spring, late winter, early spring.
Yep.
And we're looking at doing another one on Friday, February 21st. It usually starts around 11:30 in the morning, and it'll be held at Jeanette's Pier once again. And the board is certainly welcome to attend. And we'll be providing more information on what we're going to plan for the agenda soon, but I just wanted to put that out there on your calendars if you wish to attend.
Okay. All right, great.
And then another thing I wanted to bring up, this is something that Commissioner Sears, Mayor Pro Tem, brought up last month. I know he was approached by someone about a sign ordinance that we had that pertained to signs in residential districts. And sort of wondered if the board wanted a little background on that, maybe at the next meeting, and see if we wanted to take any direction from the board on that. So it's one of those things that's probably going to require a little presentation before you can really kind of get into it. So if that's okay, I could ask Kelly to do that next month.
Seems reasonable. Okay, all right, thank you, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Is our presenter ready?
Yeah, she's on.
Okay, all right, then let's go to our time-specific item for 10 o'clock, which is the presentation of the annual audit report. And Amy, do you want to speak to this before we start?
Thank you. We have Emily Mills here. She's a partner at Potter & Company who has been our auditors for the past several years. They're incredible. She and her staff are just like ninjas. They come in, they work, and she's very highly knowledgeable in accounting. And I know Carolyn and Brittany handed out our financial statements. I love doing the financial statements, and I wanted to thank Brooke, who's our deputy, that helps me do that. That's one of my favorite parts of my job. It's about a 5 or 6 month effort, believe it or not, to come to that, between getting ready for the audit, doing the preliminary work, and we couldn't do this without the help of Emily and her staff. We received the Triple Crown from the GFOA for the past 2 years. That we received awards for our budget, our financial statement, and our popular annual financial statement. And we're one of the few municipalities in North Carolina that, especially for our size, I think it's pretty incredible, and everybody knows who's on the team that helps with that. But we couldn't get that award without the help of Emily and her staff, because they pour as much work into reviewing our financials, and they find that, sometimes you can't see the forest through the trees. They find details that you overlook, and just a great professional resource. So, and again, I let Emily know, thank you for renewing their contract again. It's going to be a great partnership again this year. So without that being said, with further ado, I'll present Emily.
Okay, thank you. All right, welcome, Emily.
Thank you, Amy. Good morning. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Okay. Again, my name is Emily Mills, and I'm a partner with Potter & Company. And I'm pleased to appear before you this morning to present the town's annual comprehensive financial report for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2024. And I just want to say thank you for allowing us to work with the town. We really enjoy the professionalism that Amy and Brooke and the entire staff have, and they're just a pleasure to work with. We just want to commend them for a job well done. On page 1 of the financial statements, you will find our independent auditor's report. We have issued an unmodified opinion on the financial statements for the town as of June 30th, 2024. An unmodified report is the highest level of assurance that we as independent auditors can issue, and it states that the financial statements present fairly, in all material respects, the financial position of the town. This is commonly referred to as a clean opinion. In addition to this report, we have also issued a group of reports on the town's compliance. These reports are found in the compliance section that starts on page 138. And they deal with the town's compliance with government auditing standards, in addition to the compliance with state programs and laws and regulations. We noted no findings that we consider to be significant deficiencies or material weaknesses. The financial statements were submitted to the LGC on November the 25th. We received review confirmation from the LGC on December the 6th. And there are no items that require the town to submit a response to the LGC for this year. And again, I would just like to say thank you and see if you have any questions.
Board? Mr. Sears? No, I see no questions. Thank you.
Have a great day.
All right. Thank you. That was quick and easy.
Great when you get a good audit.
Amy, I have to say, that was That was about the shortest audit presentation we've ever had. And we know that the audit is always extremely well done. And I would ask you again to speak. I know how much work goes into this, not just by the consultant, but by the staff.
Yes, and I do want to say also, Emily mentioned that our report goes to the LGC, and that was submitted, but we did also submit this to the Government Finance Officers Association to get the certificate of achievement for excellence in reporting. We've done that since 2016, and so we've done that again this year. But yes, between the audit and the financial statements, we probably start, you know, it's like budget season or financial season.
Right.
And
Sure.
I never know what year it is because I'm never working like whatever year it is. Like now I'm even like working on the 27 budget. So I don't ever know what year it is. But these are the 2024 financial statements. Our fiscal year ends in June of 2024. So these audit from July 1st, 23 to June 2024. So it takes that long. I know it's January 25. It does take that long to get it done. But you know, I really want to thank my staff because I feel like we have a high level of a high standard, and I want to say close to perfection as it is. I think we have a great balance of having a great camaraderie and having fun, but taking our work seriously. And we did receive, again, I don't know if we had mentioned that, but we did receive the Triple Crown Award from the GFOA, which is an award for our financial statement, our budget, and our popular annual financial report. And you cannot submit a popular annual financial report without submitting and getting the award for the annual comprehensive financial report. So we are working on submitting that now because we haven't received our comments from last year back. So we have a draft, so we're working on that, and that goes on our website. But I do want to thank my staff because I think that we just all hold each other accountable, like our town values say, and I don't want to say perfection, but we're pretty darn close to it. And I think, I think not myself, but I think we have, you know, everybody's really well respected around the town. And again, we thank Emily for her staff as well for keeping us honest and holding us to that high standard as well.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Not just required, but a step toward transparency, especially the public-facing report that we put on the website.
Yes,
as well.
we are not, we're not required to do an ACFR, but we are because we have the lobs. So that was part of, we couldn't have done that without that. So it's also, you know, kind of thinking forward as well, so.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, great. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, Emily.
Bye-bye.
You.
That brings us, did we ask for we did other business, because that was Andy. Andy, did you finish everything that you wanted to
Yes,
cover in that?
thank you.
Okay, then that would bring us to closed sessions. We have a request for a closed session to consider a personnel matter pursuant to General Statute 143-318.11A6. I make that motion.
Second?
I have a motion and a second to enter closed session for a personnel matter. All those in favor signify by saying aye. 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 Opposed? All right, thank you. The board will be in closed session. The board has returned to open session. Mr. Leidy, if you'll report, and we do have an action item.
Yes, sir. The board did discuss various personnel matters. Action was taken on one of those, but nothing else needs to be reported at this time.
Okay. And Mr. Manager, I believe we have an item we need to act on.
Yes, I have a revised pay plan that I'd like the board to consider adopting. We'll go ahead and give a copy of it to our town clerk. And so.
Okay, all right. Then, having seen that, a motion would be in order to adopt
Make that motion
that
to
amended
adopt.
pay plan. Is there a second? I have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, thank you. I think we asked if there was any other business, and there was none, so I believe that brings us to the end of our meeting. So a motion to recess to Wednesday, January 22nd at 9 a.m. To be followed by a water rates workshop. Is there a motion?
So moved.
I have a motion. I have a second. I have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you. Board is in recess.